I'm Michael. Started as a intern at Meta or Facebook back in 2009. I went there straight from school. I was gonna do my PhD at University of Washington, and I was signed up, ready to go, had my dorm and everything. Did an internship in between, and basically just took a weekend off and stayed on full time and started my Meta journey then. 8 years later, I left in 2017. So a lot happened during that time. There was about 200 engineers when I started and about 10,000 when I left. So just massive. It sounds like a joke now, but there was two people who were doing all of Facebook photos at the time. And there was only one person working on video, and that person was my friend who was an intern at the time in 2009. So it's like really, really just like massive amounts of room to grow there and figure stuff out and try things. Yeah, so learned a lot. We're going to talk a lot more about all that journey, I'm sure, in this call. But after that, went on to start Formation, which is a mentorship and interview prep community to help people prepare for top tier interviews and help level up their jobs and be stronger engineers. Yeah, I'm happy to dive into the Facebook time.
And maybe, yeah, can we talk about a lot of people might be familiar with Facebook/Google leveling because they're quite similar, but can you talk about, you start
Oh
out at
yeah, sorry.
E3 and what does it mean to go up to E6 and eventually E7, which is the level you got to?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to jump into that. Yeah. So the leveling starts generally at Fang. They kind of all copied each other over the years. When I was started at Facebook, they said they copied their leveling system or inspired their system from Google, which I think got inspired by Yahoo. I don't know where Yahoo got it inspired by, but it's a similar system. It's not quite the exact same levels everywhere, but it's roughly this idea of a new grad starting out is entry level or E3 or L3, or at Amazon, I think it's L4. It's the kind of entry level engineer. Um, After 1 to 3 years, sometimes 4 years, you're looking at becoming a mid-level engineer, the kind of E4, L4 bar at Meta and Google. Generally, that jump is about raw productivity, uh, doing a really good job on the things you're being assigned. You're working on tasks and small pieces that are being assigned to you on a weekly basis or so. And then when you're doing a really, really good job on that, and you've demonstrated that you've successfully taken on more responsibilities, then you'll retroactively get promoted to the mid level. So you don't get promoted just by doing a really good job on all your tasks. You have to be already demonstrating the scope of responsibility for a mid level engineer, which is taking on larger features at a time. So um, working on something that might get broken down into 10 or 20 tasks, working on something that might have a pretty focused, narrow goal or milestone to achieve, and you have more flexibility to break that down and get there. That's kind of the mid-level engineer. And then if you're doing a really good job on all of that stuff and you start taking on even more responsibility, that's when you start making the move to senior. And senior is the E5, L5 Meta Google level. And that is it's a pretty big jump from mid-level to senior. But most of these companies, except for Google, expect you to make that jump after some period of time. So at Meta, it's maybe as a mid-level, like 1 to 5 years-ish, plus minus some fuzziness there, to get to senior. And the scope of responsibility at senior, again, you have to be demonstrating the senior responsibilities to get the promotion. You can't just be doing a really good job on your features and everyone might love you. They might send you lots of praise every day, but if you're not taking on a wider scope of responsibility, then you won't make the jump to senior. And at senior level, you're starting to have impact on your entire team. You might be like one of the go-to engineers for a team of 5 to 10 engineers to code review and mentor new people starting the team. You might lead some stand-ups depending on your team. You're starting to have, it's not just necessarily the soft side though, like you're you're being given also engineering projects that are more at a larger goal level. Sometimes we'll talk about it on the like a time period of like months or 1 month or 3 months, or kind of it varies. There's not really any rule, but you're given something that is a lot meatier. You're probably going to be breaking it down and giving specific features to other or to mid-level engineers on the team. You might be giving specific tasks to new engineers on the team, handpicked to help them ramp up really well, and them ramping up really well would contribute to your success as a senior engineer. You're starting to get to that kind of scope of responsibility. And again, from mid-level to senior, you have to demonstrate those things as a mid-level to get that promotion. It's not like you get promoted and you get handed all these extra responsibilities. Yeah, and the senior to staff jump is much larger. Not everyone makes that. At most companies, you can stay at a senior engineer and be happy there for your entire career. And the senior to staff, we're gonna probably talk way more about the staff, senior staff, principal, etc. So I won't go into all of those details maybe right now, but that next jump is the senior to staff's the next really big jump where you're starting to have impact well beyond your team to your org, and even beyond that.
Yeah, I like it. One of the things that I'm sure we'll talk about is as you get to that very, very senior levels, senior staff, principal, you have archetypes of how you have unique impact. And your claim to fame is, Michael, you were the first, like you basically created a new archetype, which was code machine. So before we talk about what does that actually mean to be a code machine and like how you did that, I wonder how as you were going up the ranks very quickly at Facebook, how deliberate were you in figuring out like your way of getting promoted? Or did it just kind of happen organically? Or was it something that you planned out as you were getting promoted?
Yeah, I would say if someone else saw my saw me day to day, they would say it was extremely deliberate. Um, in that like I was very focused on not just checking off boxes to get promoted, but I was very much focused on being recognized for impact.
Mm,
Like that was just I wanted people to see me as someone who could just be very impactful at the company and get a lot done and ship things really quickly. It's similar like personality trait, I think, to the idea when Apple talks about like delightful experiences. Like they want users to be delighted, pull up the iPhone and be like delighted with their experience. And I kind of wanted that vibe with other employees. Like I wanted them to ask for something and I delivered it faster than they thought was possible, and they're delighted. Or they just needed something really quick to be unblocked, and I just unblocked them really fast, and they were just like delighted. That's kind of the what I wanted, and I wanted to be recognized for that. So I didn't want to just do that behind the scene. Like I wanted people to see me as that kind of person who's very helpful. And so I was just so I was very focused on being recognized for that stuff, and then connecting, and then like how do you get recognized for that? Well, you get recognized for impact through promotions and equity grants and stuff like that. So I saw those things as a acknowledgement of that impact that I was trying very hard to have, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Awesome. Okay, just to just kind of zoom out a little bit, I just wanted to lay out the structure of the session for everyone. So Rahul and I have a couple prepared, what we think are thoughtful questions for Michael, just to get him to share as much of his wisdom as possible. So we're going to go through those prepared questions for the next 20 minutes or so. And then after that, we want to take questions from everyone here in the call, i.e. you, the community. So as you come up with questions to ask Michael, just put them in the Zoom chat. And even if you don't have any questions of your own to come up with, if you see something in the Zoom chat that you like a question posted by another person that they want to ask Michael, just give it a thumbs up. So at around 5:35, 5:40 California time, i.e. 25 minutes from now, we're going to go through the chat. We're going to pluck out, 3, 4, 5 questions with a ton of upvotes on them. And then we're going to, have Michael go through those. So with the prepared questions, I have this one, which I personally think is fun. I'm also very curious. So when it comes to being a code machine, you got to write a ton of code, but any engineer could probably put out 500 commits a half just doing like random basic refactoring. But that obviously doesn't qualify you to become an E6, E7 code machine at a top company like Meta. So what exactly kind of work does qualify you to reach such a senior level with this archetype?
Yeah. And it's a really good question. And it's probably the number one question I get. People are just like, someone can't write a lot of code and get promoted. They need to have a lot of impact. And how can you do that through raw lines of code, et cetera? And it is a lot more nuanced than that. Yeah. So first of all, to get to the like E7 level at Meta, you have to be particularly or uniquely good at something as an engineer. Like that's kind of the bar is like you're the best at something in the whole company or in the whole department now that they're so huge. And that's what gets you recognized. And they've tried to come up with these archetypes to give some patterns of people who have this kind of impact or are the best at what they do type thing. Um, and the coding, like there's kind of when you talk about like the things that a coding machine does, they're writing a lot of code, but they don't really fit into like the generalist bucket of archetype, which is one of the categories. Because the code that you write as a coding machine, like the code that you're cranking out, might not be like super hard or impactful code. It might just be like a lot of code for some of it. And then that might be there might be a lot of volume of like not super hard code. But then on the other hand, you also have to have a lot of impact. And for me personally, there was a significant amount of stuff that I wrote that was really hard problems that no one else could solve. One of the like performance reviews I pulled up when I was kind of preparing some notes, like explicitly just said that they thought that no one else in the company could have done the refactoring that I wrote without causing problems like I did. I didn't cause any problems. Um,
Yeah,
so that was kind of the oh yeah, you have the quote.
yeah, are
Yeah,
you
that
able to see
one.
my screen? So in the prep for this call, Michael shared these are actual screenshots from his PSC, which is performance summary cycle. The review, that's what it's called at Facebook, the review system. So this is a great one, I think, which is alluding to what you're talking about, Michael. He managed to do
Yeah.
this without causing a sev, was testament to the fact that he is one of the few engineers qualified to undertake this task. And then maybe one more I'll show. Michael also works to drive others to clean up unused code in their team's portion of the code base and is very quick to assist in debugging difficult issues, which I think is going back to what you talked about with the user delight of just that you're immediately available and helpful to push things forward.
Yeah. So I think like maybe to try to like distill the coding machine a bit more. There's kind of like the raw productivity and output and stuff that you see like on the surface. If I was just an engineer who saw a YouTube video for 10 minutes and like it might look a little bit on the surface like you're just writing code all day. But really what you're doing is unblocking the company through something. Whether it's writing a lot of code, whether it's helping a lot of people out, whether there's a critical sev that happens. Sev is like a sites down or something, where there's like a really bad bug that's corrupting data everywhere and stuff like that. And you're really helpful by jumping in and either fixing it or pinging the exact right person and pulling them in so they can fix it like without anyone asking you to do this stuff. You're helping kind of motivate everyone at the company to move. You're like turning the gears of the company. And doing that at a company level is what makes you like a E7 coding machine. There's people who can kind of maybe do that locally on your team, and you might not get to the company level. Doing it on the company level is a little harder, and that's like the jump. Um,
And maybe that's a good segue to the question I would ask. Like the final screenshot you shared, um, maybe alludes to what you'll talk about. But I wonder if you could just share, without breaking obviously confidentiality rules, but what were some of the sample projects or unique impact you had to go from staff to senior staff? That promotion in particular, most engineers will never make it. So could you talk about how did that manifest for you as a code machine?
yeah, so there's two things. This screenshot right now shows one of them, which was just I don't know if it's why it wasn't my job to monitor for significant sevs breaking out issues for these are like company-wide issues. It wasn't my job to monitor them. They weren't even on my team. I was just around. I was responsive. I helped fix them. I helped call the right people into the room. I helped narrow down what was even happening. It's like there's this when the site goes down, it's usually not on purpose. So usually people don't know exactly what happened right away, and there's just breadcrumbs and kind of hints, and you got to like figure it out like a puzzle. Doing that absurdly quickly and pulling in the right people can be the difference between like millions of dollars of savings of loss. It could be the difference between having like a data issue that causes hundreds of millions of dollars of fines, stuff like that. Those can be very impactful to help. And there's not a job. There isn't someone whose job it is to do that because it's like these problems impact the whole company. It's not what you know. And the second thing is actually raw outputs. I don't think this is definitely not in this screenshot, but one of the cleanup projects that was flagged on this promotion was a remove 200,000 lines of code in the newsfeed area of the code base. We had transitioned and rewrote like the whole user UI experience for newsfeed, and there was two versions living side by side. And newsfeed's so core to Facebook that every engineer at the company touches it in some way, either directly or secondarily or tertiary. There's some effects of what you're doing on newsfeed. So having two versions of that, like the legacy one, which is still being used in some cases, and like the main one that's like the new flagship one, it's very hard for all the engineers to have to deal with that. So I literally ripped out the old one and made backwards compatible stubs here and there, and just it was gone in like weeks, just gone from the face of the earth like it never existed. So that is like an example of the raw horsepower side of things that has an impact on the whole company or all of the engineers. So you can see a little bit of both those examples of like the common thread being impact at like the company level. And Meta was smaller back then, so the company level was when I got this promotion probably 5,000 engineers, which is a lot. But now that's probably like a major department of all the engineers right now. So when I say company level, I mean like several thousand engineers that you're impacting in some way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The next question, I think other people have alluded to this in the chat already. So as you become more senior, especially at big tech companies like Meta, you generally get more and more of your time sucked up by things like politics, red tape, bureaucracy, meetings. Like even Meta E5s nowadays, some of them have like 15, 20 hours of meetings per week. And you got to E7. So like how did you live with all that while simultaneously being so individually productive on the coding side?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And my style is to be very like direct and not sugarcoat things. And I don't think I did it well in retrospect. Um, it's it's controversial. So I solved this problem. You're totally right that these things exist. There's, VPs trying to pull resources from each other, each one thinking that their projects are more important, and there's lots of like, yeah, there's things that go on that I basically I was very direct about what I like needed to do what I do. Almost I would say I'm again being very blunt. You can hopefully this doesn't get taken out into like some short later on, but it was a little bit of like the celebrity in the green room thing where there's like some story about how some musician was like in their green room preparing for a performance and they wanted like only green M&Ms in the bowl or something. Like it wasn't like that kind of thing, but like that it was I did have a little bit of that vibe around my needs to be a coding machine. Like I need to not have that many meetings. If there was a meeting on my calendar, I would just be like, I'm not going to this meeting. Like declined. Like it was a little bit not mean, just like it was very direct about what I needed. And I if I was going to join a new team, I would be talking to the manager about this before. Like I probably won't be going to daily stand-ups. I'll go to like one stand-up a week, but I'm not going to daily stand-ups if they're going to be like not a good use of time. for the team. If like I feel like, if it's like a politics type thing where like some engineer is trying to show more leadership by organizing meetings. So a common pattern is like a junior engineer wants to show more scope, so they'll start organizing meetings they lead to like try to build that. I was like not if the meeting didn't have a good purpose, I was not attending. I was pretty strict about that, if that makes sense. But in retrospect, like, I mean, it worked for me because it kind of, I was kind of like a lone wolf vibe on my teams. I wasn't really close friends with people on my teams. I didn't, like the local smaller teams I was on. I was kind of like just another senior engineer on the team who's uh doing their work, and that's kind of it vibe. I wasn't like the team leader person type vibe. I was so um so I think like in retrospect though, I think that like it did work. This kind of style like worked to create the like ultimate atmosphere for what I was good at. But I think the result was I didn't improve in the areas where I needed to grow as an engineer. And I think if you talk to people at Meta, like some who have different impressions of my work and whatever over the years, um, like I think I think I could have had a better growth mindset while I was there to try to grow in some of the other areas, like uh, influencing other engineers was something I was like not that good at one-on-one. Like there's some engineers, like I won't call out their names, but there's a team called Product Infrastructure at the time that had a lot of really good engineers who are building things like React, like the internals and stuff like that. And like you would have a conversation with someone from that team, and you would feel like you like they like convinced you that this new idea is the future. I wasn't good at that, and I just avoided that. So I didn't talk a lot one-on-one to people to try to influence some ideas, and I'm still not very good at that. And I think in some ways, like going all in on the things that I'm good at resulted in a lot of impact that I'm very proud of. But on the other hand, I definitely do have a lot of weaknesses that I could have filled in. So kind of a long answer, but trying to give a different perspective on things rather than just like a sugar-coated, like I had the right answers all the time answer. I don't think I had all the right answers.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about here is play to your strengths. And especially when there's a lot of growth happening in a company, like a startup or Facebook during hypergrowth. Um, I think what I've seen is that just doubling down on what you're really, really good at is going to yield a better outcome compared to trying to shore up a deficiency. And it sounds like you did that really well. Um, so part of that is like you have to be on the right team where those strengths of your unique strengths are recognized and have impact. So that's a common question that we get too, which is how do I know if the team I'm on can actually support a code machine, right? So I was on Portal, which is like a 0 to 1 initiative at Facebook, and a lot of code was written for that at Facebook or at Meta when I was there. Alex was on an ads team, and ads infra, from what I hear from Alex or other friends who were on ads, is that they're a lot more deliberate about you can't just ship, 100,000 lines of code on that team. So what can you give as a framework or advice to people who are wondering what is their team a good fit for Code Machine or whatever is their way to having impact?
Yeah. I do have more direct practical advice for this one, I think. Because I actually think there were patterns I observed. I don't know if this is objectively the best answer, but there are things that I would recommend looking at. Is a team that has a lot of legacy and unowned code is a good area for the coding machine. Like for me, like how like a marathon runner, when they're training for the Olympics, they're like super intensely training, but when they're not training, they're still going for like lots of jogs and what we would call like, or what they might call like a light jog, but we would think of as like probably a big run. But like they're keeping warm. And I think having a large legacy code base of unowned code, which at Meta, like honestly, there is a mono repo of there's a lot to work with there. But like if you're trying to a different company or trying to find a team that has a lot of legacy and unknown code, it's a good area so that you can, get your daily exercise in by working with that code, cleaning it up, removing stuff, modernizing frameworks, things like that can kind of like keep the blood flowing. So that's like one place to kind of start for like a comfort area. And then another area is I actually think so I don't know how well this works anymore at Meta because it's so large, but if there's a kind of a new initiative that is like more at the prototype phase, like something that needs to be not perfect, not perfectly specced out, doesn't have a lot of maybe like nuances to it that require legal review, and is something more like simple that just needs to move fast. Those 0 to 1 projects can be pretty good for a coding machine, and the impact there is kind of like throw the coding machine onto this project to do the work of like 4 engineers in a week or much faster. And that can help move those projects out. But since those projects that are kind of new scoped are short term and it may or may not work. And if it does work, then what do you do? It goes off in all these different branches in all these different directions. So, but it is an area like I moved around once I was at the E7 level, I moved around pretty rapidly between teams based on what projects they had that needed this. So I moved on to a team that was trying to reboot um, Facebook groups for schools. I called it communities. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was like Facebook groups scoped to your school. They were trying to reboot that. And I jumped to that team for a couple months to crush through helping them reboot it. And then right after that, Facebook was launching Messenger for Kids, which was a brand new project, and they needed someone to rewrite all of the authentication and profile code at Meta to make it work for people under 18 because everything was based on all the laws that apply to people 18 plus. So I was thrown onto that because they needed that like first step to get crunched through really fast. And I did that. I was thrown on a profile project for about a month where I cranked through that project just single-handedly instead of needing a team of people to try out this new idea they had with profile overlays. So that's like another option. But I would kind of like recommend the anti-pattern. I would avoid teams that are like not they're kind of like in between. It's like a newer product but a stable product. It's changing fast, but there's a lot of reorgs and product changes to it, and because then you'll have to deal with the politics of all of that, and it's probably not the best place.
Just curious, when you were on loan for this new Messenger Kids initiative or that communities, how many hours per week were you working, would you say? I imagine it's not like the standard 35, 40 hours a week.
So those became my team. I was always on a team. That was my home team. Um, and I would say that I probably spent half my time on that, and then half my time on this like company-wide things. You don't know when there's going to be an emergency or a sev that needs help. So like if I was, working on something and I saw that come up, that might distract me for a day or something, and I would make up for it. So it was definitely not like a X hours per week. But it was about 50% of my mental energy was devoted to my team, I'd say.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. And I think, Alex, do you want to take that one about the early days of Facebook?
Yeah. I mean, last one's a bit of a fun softball. Do you have any like what's your favorite story to tell for being one of Meta's, first engineers? Do you have any that are, silly slash entertaining? Like an example of one that's silly slash entertaining is I always remember Chuck Rossi yelling at people to, hey, you got a dog food, man. Like you can't stop complaining, Like, do you have anything like that?
I think the one-liner funny story, which is like not necessarily a good thing, but Chucker, speaking of Chucker, he was like the head of all the release engineering. So he had a reputation of being a very scary person because if you broke something and you needed an emergency fix or something like that, you kind of had to like be nice to him. And he came across pretty unapproachable, even though he's a very approachable person. He just came across that way. But anyways, yeah, so he would do a talk to all the new engineers every week when they all started at the company. And like there was a slide that he added, which was like, don't be like this guy. And it was a photo of me saying like, I don't, it's like the Dos Equis guy, like I don't test my code, but when I do, it's in production. It had my face on it. Nowadays, like I don't know if that's considered bullying, but at the time it wasn't. So they got away with that. So like a lot of people would start and they would be like, "Hey, you're the person from onboarding that I'm not supposed to be like." It was kind of funny. I think like one of the more like interesting or funny random stories that I have like so many stories. I'll just like do one quick one more, but um there was so Meta is it's like, pretty cool. A lot of companies do this now, but they have like they try to hack their own employees. So there's like a team of people and their whole job is to try to hack their own employees to test to make sure that the employees are like the company's like robust against all kinds of hacking, like phishing attacks, spam, like the even like 1 0 day like vulnerabilities and all those things. Like they will try. They're like sitting there trying to hack their own employees. It's pretty cool. And a lot of companies do this because it's like how they stay ahead of the of even the best practices, common best practices. They have to stay one step ahead of that because people want to hack in these companies. Like imagine you're Coinbase or a crypto company where all you need is like certain wallet keys and you can steal billions of dollars in theory. Like there's a lot of these companies put a lot of effort in this, and I participated in one of these as like a planted person. So a former employee had to like send me this special email with like this actual vulnerability, and I had like a fake computer set up that I received it on, and then I received it, and then this vulnerability was used to like do some bad stuff, and then we had to wait to see how long security it took for security to come to my desk and like take me away. But it was like all set up. It was like the head. I was like really concerned because it was like only me and like the head of security knew about this because their own security team couldn't know about it because it was a live drill. So it was kind of funny. So like sitting there like waiting, like when is security gonna come take me away? When are they gonna take me away? And it took like 3 hours, but then they came over and they were like took my stuff away and my like computer and everything, and then we revealed that it was like a drill, but it was pretty funny. Um,
That's crazy. I did not know that Facebook did that. And that must have been scary for you. It's like you're not sure. They probably were pissed off. Like, you just let this happen and now we're
the the
compromised.
person who was most pissed off was my manager because they take my stuff away for like forensic analysis for like a day. Like I couldn't write code for a day.
Yeah.
My manager was like needed approval. It was like, I don't know if we can lose a day of code here. This is gonna be costly.
Yeah, and that
Um,
makes sense, right? A day of an E7 engineer's time, that is worth many thousands of dollars. So I would be pissed off if I was a manager.
yeah.
Uh, Okay, I have one question, actually, before we open up. AI, that is the topic du jour these days. So, we had a brief exchange on LinkedIn. Michael, you said that you use GitHub Copilot. So I have a two-part question. One is, why do you use GitHub Copilot as opposed to Cursor or Windsurf? Or maybe if you've tried out these, codecs or these AI agents that can do a lot of tasks autonomously. I'm wondering your thoughts on that and why you pick Copilot. The second question, like the part two of that, if you were back at Facebook when these tools were around, do you think your impact as a code machine would have been muted in the sense that now your exceptional ability to output high quality, really difficult code wouldn't have been as valuable because now everyone has kind of gotten a little bit closer to you? I wonder if you have thoughts about that.
yeah, okay, there's a lot to talk about there. Um, so like first off, my like personal use of AI tools, like I'm a very centrist person, so I don't I try not to like take one side or the other. And there's a lot right now because AI is so hot. There's a lot of hot takes on both sides to get a lot of influencer video views and headlines. And it's kind of hard to navigate like what's real. I'm sure a lot of people here, if you feel like this, like give a thumbs up or something. But like if you just feel like is this demo real? Is it like just a demo? Can it actually, like people are saying it does improve productivity. I don't know if it's improving my own productivity. Like I really feel like it's like almost stressful to be an engineer right now and seeing all this stuff. So I'm very sad. I just try to like take it all in and I have experiences with AI. Like today, I was trying to show something to the team, and I'm like, this AI is going to do this in like 2 seconds. Watch, this is perfect. And it like didn't work right. And then I iterated on it, and then it didn't work right. And then I just hand wrote the code, and it was like not. And the team's like, wow, good job on. And it's like that's real use of AI. But then I have experiences where I know like I know exactly what I'm right. I see the patterns. I know the right prompt, and it like saves like hours of work, or I build something to help someone on the team that I originally said we can't build this tool, it's too much work. I might be able to build them that tool or like 80% of it like in 20 minutes literally. So I'm seeing both extremes too, and it's like I don't know what it all means. I'm trying to like figure it out. So I think that tools are changing constantly. Every day there's a new model coming out. Every day I'm changing my models. People are like, do you use like O3 or Gemini 2.5 Pro? And it's like it changes every day. The different services, they're like if everyone's using O3 and like their backend's really overloaded, like their inference time might increase and it might be slower and I might not use it. And like it's just like it's very hard to navigate. So I'm not like a fan of like I don't just try every single tool and like jump around to like this one's better than this one. This I just kind of like try to soak it all in. And I try not to make huge changes day to day. I try to make small incremental changes. So I've been very slowly rolling AI into my workflow. And I use VS Code. I'm working in a React code base on the front end, Node.js on the back end. This is all like kind of off the shelf stuff that and I have a nice workflow. So I'm slowly integrating AI through CoPilot into that because it's tightly integrated into my experience easily and easy to do that incremental approach. Um, like the idea of like using a new way, like using codecs to try to fix a bug async, like I'm just not there yet. And the time I would have to invest some time to like start trying to figure that out or like poke around with it and try to use it like for my real code, not like toy projects. So that's just kind of personal AI use for how AI is impacting the coding machine. Is a very interesting one. So it's interesting because at formation, I'm writing like a ton of code and it's increased the amount of impact I can have. Um, it's it helps other people who non-engineers who aren't using AI to build tools themselves. It helps them have more impact by having these tools faster, or that wouldn't exist otherwise. So all in all, it's like actually amplifying myself as a coding machine at formation. Now at Meta, like it's hard to say. I I think the one thing that about me as a coding machine, which I don't know if all coding machines have the trait of the responsiveness and the unblocking gear turning. It's almost like a personality trait that just like if everything's kind of like stagnating, you just like gotta turn the gears like at all costs and like really like try to push things forward on the very like low level. That personality trait like is useful with whatever tools you have. Like I would probably be that personality trait like in a fashion design company that I know nothing about, would probably still be like impactful there to just keep gears turning, keep things happening, unblocking people. So I think that trait, which I don't know if all coding machines have or not. I don't know that many other coding machines because I was the first one and then left 2 years later. But that trait I think is very valuable for any engineer, really. But yeah.
I like it.
Okay, yeah, we're 45 minutes in. I think it's time to get to the audience questions now. I actually do have a hard stop at 6, so I think I can only go through two. I don't know. I don't know if you two can stick around, Rahul, Michael, but up to you guys. So I've thank you, chat, for all the questions. There's so many. It's hard picking, but I have picked two, which also build on top of one another. So I'm gonna go to the first one. Okay, so this is from Kevin. From your perspective, which parts of programming did you get really good at that separates you from the average programmer?
Um, I would say it's very basic things, like almost even the mechanics of copy paste and opening tabs and selecting. um, those things can really like speed you up, and it might not seem like it's a huge deal, but like you might after like an hour of focused coding, you might have like twice as much stuff done. And that stuff's also applying to prompting in AI now. Like I'm making these real-time calls of like, I want to do like write like 10 lines of code. I know what I need to write. Can I in real time come up with a prompt that in like 10 words that will execute and output faster than I can type it? And I have to make that judgment call as I'm typing. And so that actually sounds a lot more like complex and nuanced. Whereas like being better at Command C and clicking and dragging doesn't. But I think it's kind of similar skills trying to be very fast, uh, making decisions fast in your coding and sprinting
And how does that
mentality.
how do you practice that? Is it like, for example, typing speed? Is that something you care about, or is it just like you really care about the shortcuts in your IDE? What do you do to get better at that skill of the mechanics, getting better at
I'm
those?
Yeah, so being very diligent about improving things that are if I do anything repeatedly, I find some way to make it faster. Like I think that I can if I need to do like a one word change in the code base, I think I can change it, like commit it, send a PR and merge it and like push it live within like 40 seconds or something or less. Like and I want that like if any part of that step that I'm doing something where I'm like committing code often or I'm writing commit messages often or I'm anything I'm doing repeatedly, I try to make more and more efficient so that I don't have to repeat things. That makes sense. I think a lot of people are not that I when I work with other engineers, a lot of people are not that diligent. They kind of it's like a little bit more like complaining or like same thing over like time to go get a coffee, and I'm just like very like no repeating, like make this more efficient.
Yeah, it sounds like the drive philosophy, like, don't repeat yourself. And
Yeah,
people know that concept in code. You take that to the extreme in your workflow, it sounds like, and that pays a lot of dividends.
yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, getting stupidly good at the basics is really powerful. And then, building on top of that, the second question that I have, this one I think I might have the most, 21 upvotes. To be a code machine like you won't happen in a day, or it may never happen. But to shoot for such a top level as an engineer, what kind of daily practice, professional development, study program, daily coding / knowledge prep would you recommend?
Um, so I think specifically getting to like this senior staff principal level that's like beyond the terminal levels, you have to be self-aware of what you're really good at and not try to do things that you're not good at. I think like Rahul said earlier. Um, so to me, that question's like, how do you figure out what you're good at? Because you might not know. And you might really like cleaning up code, but like, is that the thing that you're really good at? And um, I think my general advice to people is to write a lot of code and try things. So like spend less time like thinking about it. Like don't whiteboard it. Don't like brainstorm what you might be good at. Like just write a lot of code and figure it out. And try a lot of things, and you'll see pretty quickly the things that you're just not good at, and you can narrow it down. And you might find things that you're like pretty good at. And it's not so much like a lot of people are like talking about languages and stacks, and they're like, if I want to become a coding machine, should I work in JavaScript or Python? And I like do not know how to answer that question. Or it's kind of like it's stack agnostic. It's the trait of like this drive inside that just wants to move really, really, really fast and get a lot done and turn the gears. And like that's the trait I needed to discover in myself. Um, and I would encourage people to try to figure out what that personality trait is, not the surface level language or stack or features or like user facing stuff that they like try to find the deeper trait about you as a person that is not necessarily related to coding that you think that you can go all in on type thing.
I have one which is a bit unrelated to this idea of a code machine, but I think is still, oops, let me pin this back. I think a lot of people will be interested. One of the things that uh, you're super active on is Reddit, like we talked about at the beginning of the call, and you're genuinely just giving out a lot of helpful advice on the Leak Code subreddit. And everyone here is familiar with Leak Code as the entry ticket into passing the interview for these big tech companies. So I'm curious, Michael, if you have, out of all the interactions you've had with these people on Reddit or through Formation, what is the biggest misconception or maybe non-intuitive thing that people don't get about Leak Code and that preparation process?
Yeah, it's a good question. And maybe people will listen so I don't have to keep saying it over and over again and like giving the same advice because it's like there's a very consistent pattern of people taking on so when you do an interview, you're talking to another engineer, you're explaining your thought process, you're writing stuff out. It's a collaborative process and it's not a game, it's not like a test. It's a problem solving process. And when I see people, especially in the Leak Code subreddit on Reddit, people are like jumping way too fast ahead to harder and harder problems, and they're solving them like alone in their bedroom by themselves. Like I imagine someone like in the dark with like just a glow of a monitor, just like typing all day, and they're not talking. They're not working. They're not self-reflecting on their process. They're just trying to press test in Leak Code and have it turn green and be like, you move on to the next one, like you're done. And like people have this mentality of they need to get like 500 Leak Code problems all checked off, and they're not actually like learning. I don't want to say they're not learning anything because like through repetition you do learn some other traits, but like they're losing focus on what the purpose of these problems are. So I generally like if you just want to distill it down into something very simple, don't it's like do medium, easy and medium problems really, really well. And talk through them out loud and problem solve them and go through a clear problem solving process. Formation, we have one on our blog that's just steps to follow to have a clear problem solving process. But go through that in your practice and don't just try to check off the tests so that it passes and move on to the hardest problems so that you can yeah. The I see people who do that. Sometimes like you enter your Google interview and you get asked questions that you did the night before and it was a really hard problem and like you solve it and it worked for you. That's very rare. For most people, they like just I don't know, meltdown's the right word, but they kind of panic in the interview. They don't really know how to answer these super hard questions. They don't have tools to go to, and then they try their best, but they don't pass the interview. So that's like my biggest advice there.
And actually, what strikes me about that is that the advice that you just gave, it kind of rhymes with the advice from earlier, which is the way to be a code machine is just know the fundamentals, the basic workflow really, really well. And I think what you're advocating here is just you should be absolutely flawless when it comes to Elite Code Easy or these like core constructs in DSA. You have to master those, and then it'll actually get you more bang for your buck for the harder problems because you'll just know these basic building blocks really well. Okay. Alex, do you have any other ones from the audience Q&A that you want to pull out?
There's a lot. Like I don't a lot of them kind of overlap, so it's tricky. I don't have anything that comes top of my mind. Rahul, have you fished through and found anything that you like? We could probably do one more.
Well, I haven't gone through all the Q&A because there's so much in Zoom, but here's one just selfishly, Michael. You are very in touch with the whole, it's an impossible question, by the way, so be prepared. You're pretty in touch with the hiring market for software engineering in 5 years' time, or multiple years out from now, with AI making engineers more efficient. I'm of the belief that engineering just won't go away in 5 years. I think that you agree, but there probably will be effects on the market. Like certain companies will hire way less, certain companies might hire way more. So I'm curious if you could give us your perspective on what segments, particular industries or company sizes will be hiring aggressively, even multiple years from now, if you have a prediction on that.
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. I think if you had the answer, then you could probably invest in the stock market and live on an island somewhere because you'll have the future mapped out. It's like I think it's like yeah, it is like impossible to answer. Things change very fast and having a strong network who works at OpenAI, Anthropic. Like from all my friends, I'm hearing all of the stuff as well, like that's coming up. Not specific things, but the general direction that's coming up. And I think that it's like probably the most exciting time to be an engineer in general, because the impact that an individual engineer can have is unlocked even more. But it's also really stressful on the other hand, because like you said, it's like we don't really know how it's all going to play out. There's a world where AI agents I kind of have two. Okay, so maybe to try, this isn't quite an answer to the market question, because there's probably no point in me talking about the market question. I don't know if it'll be useful, but um, there's two like directions AI is going in simultaneously that I think this is why it's confusing. And the first one is like using AI as a tool to make you a better engineer. And I think for this year, for the next couple of years, this is going to be the way to go. It's something a formation we're working on trying to help people use AI, or techniques and stuff to use AI to be more productive engineer. That's like a that's like using AI to have more impact, doing kind of what you're doing now, but maybe more of it. There's another world though where like maybe like if I open VS Code and I or like use Cursor or Windsurf and you're getting like auto completed code, like that's enhancing what you're doing now. But like, what if there's a world where like an entire backend system is created by an AI and managed by AI, and like no one really cares how it's built? It doesn't have to be clean code. It doesn't have to like no one even maybe it's not even like code. Maybe it's just or like a modern language. Maybe it's like its own. It's writing assembly code. I don't know. Like it's doing its own thing, and it doesn't matter because it has like a contract with you, the engineer, of the API it's going to provide, and it provides that API. And if something goes wrong, you tell it, and it fixes that itself. Like there could be a world where AI doesn't enhance what we're doing now, but actually replaces it in a different way. And I don't think anyone knows what that looks like, but it's definitely a possibility on the people's radars of like, in that world, I would say the role of the engineer doesn't go away, but the role of the engineer is much more of a manager, a director of junior engineers, maybe like checking their specs and following up with them, and he's like double checking like, hey, that system's pretty important, are you sure it can handle 5 million people? And the AI is like, yeah, I got this. And it's like, how do you know it can? Are you sure about that? Like you might have that might be like one world where you're more of like a architect having conversations. And then there's the shorter term world that I'm more confident in, that is just using LLMs to enhance your efficiency as an engineer is a no-brainer. And everyone needs to be doing that like now and yesterday and 3 weeks ago and um, that bucket. And I think we see both of those like mixed up all the time. And I think that it creates more confusion. So I try to separate things into those things. So when
That's
like Codex comes out, I'm like thinking of Codex more in the bucket of that second thing, the like this thing might replace a chunk of the product,
yeah.
versus something like Claude Codes, which is more of a command line tool to enhance my productivity right now, even though they seem similar, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's a really good perspective, actually, and something that I think all of us should be thinking about as engineers. Okay, we're almost at the top of the hour. So why don't we do a couple CTAs? So I'll go first, and Michael, I'll hand it over to you. So um, Taro, the whole point is to get really high quality people to share their wisdom with all of you at scale. Michael's a shining example of that. And Michael's co-founder at Formation, Sophie, we've collaborated with her to actually create multiple courses on Taro, which are some of the most highly reviewed. So I dropped both of those in the chat, choosing your path in tech and the top ways that people fail system design interviews. So would highly encourage people to check that out. And then I will drop the LinkedIn for Michael and Reddit for Michael. If there's anything else you want me to drop, Michael, let me know. But I'd love also for you to share whatever CTA you have.
Yeah, that's good. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Reddit. My coding machine tendencies apply broadly, so I try to be pretty responsive. If there's like an influx after this, I'll try to I might be a bit slower than normal, but I try to be very responsive. But yeah, about for formation in general, There's a lot going on there, so I'd encourage people to check it out. Um, if you don't know about it, it's an interview prep and mentorship platform focused on helping mid-level and senior engineers get ready for interviews and try to level up to kind of a more impactful tech role. Um, kind of like a gym membership. Um, if you want to get in shape for interviews and you want gym membership that comes with classes and personal training sessions and all that stuff that you get in a nice gym membership, it's that kind of vibe. Um, but yeah, our so definitely check that out. We're working on some AI stuff, um, and not in the buzzwordy sense. I think it's very different than what I've seen other people doing. We're trying to really focus on basic, simple AI to make you more productive and efficient. So sign up for some. If you sign up anywhere on formation.dev, we'll tell you about that stuff that's coming up too.
Okay, perfect. I see a couple people. Gabriel was asking Michael, would you be open to doing a coding machine course on Taro? So we'll have that discussion later. I think a lot of people are really interested in exactly how you work. So I think there is a market for that. Um, Alex, any final words before we wrap up?
No, I'm good. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming, and huge thanks to Michael, obviously, for sharing his wisdom. Yeah, like ETM code machine is just so rare. Like for context, in my org at Instagram ads, I don't even think there's even one E6 code machine, let alone an E7. So they're kind of like unicorns.
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't talk publicly often. We're busy coding.
That's why I'm so happy we were able to put this on. And thank you for the 200 plus people who showed up live. For people who are asking about a recording, that will be out on Taro within a couple days. I also want to say just thank you to Nicole for helping put this together on the formation side. Michael, of course, thanks for allocating some time. We'll try and do this again in the next few months. Okay,